Hey, hello. I see we have some of you back, so we'll see if everyone else can find this. I'm just going to throw it up on my community tab so everyone can see the link. Okay, and I screenshotted your guys' questions from before, so I can get into answering those in a second. I'm just going to share this with everyone, the other link. And we have Lola here today now as well. She decided to join us. Okay. Seems like most of you are coming back now, which is great. Okay, we might still have one more slight alarm blare at some point, in which case I will very briefly mute myself, but the most of it has been done. And then we can answer some questions. Thank you. This is Lola, and she is very notorious. This is my work from home study buddy, essentially. So she is notorious for getting involved in any Zoom calls that I have, pretty much. And she just doesn't care. So, but as long as she's not barking, that's the main thing, which she may start doing if we have another siren blare in a second. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the question on any advice for preparing the first term of your PhD. Oh, brief intermission if we have the alarm sound going off now, which means Lola's going to get upset. Okay, hopefully that's it. Any advice? So I think what I was doing in the summer before was I was working on a research internship, and that was good because it gave me a bit of experience with working in research, sort of on things like I wouldn't have usually worked with. So, oh no. Alarm's still going off. I have everyone's questions from before, so I screenshotted those and I will get to answering those. So if there's any new ones, I will be sure to answer those as well. But yeah, so preparing for a PhD, I think trying to figure out a little bit about how research works. So like how does the project process work and the kind of steps. So even taking on maybe a little project yourself if you can over the summer, like something small, even just the research part of it. So doing maybe if you have an idea of what kind of project you want to work on, and then doing a bit of reading for that and trying to see, can you do a mini lit review yourself? That will be a good way to kind of get started with those kinds of things. And I think that can be very helpful. So one thing I was working on last summer was in speech recognition, very different to what I'm doing now, but it was still great to get that kind of research experience, do some reading in a given area and start working on a project. So I think that's probably something I would recommend, as well as just kind of if you have any skills that maybe need a bit of work before the PhD. So like for people in my area, they might need to work on their programming or statistics. So if you have any like courses you could do online for free, or like some of them on Udemy would be like €10. If you have anything like that you can do in advance, I would recommend that as well. So I've also got another question from Panos. I've recently applied for a PhD at Loughborough. The deadline was on Friday, and honestly, it's the most nerve-wracking experience. What advice would you give to prepare for the next steps? Congratulations on submitting your application. I also found that very stressful, and definitely waiting around was difficult. Thank you, Lola. Lola knows because she was there. Waiting around was difficult, and for us, because our course was quite new, there was actually quite a long process. So we had 2 interviews, which it was hard to know in between things if you were on the right track or not. And that made things difficult. So I would say the next steps, once you have applied, would be trying to figure out, like, as well, I think it's good to have some backup plans. So I applied for one graduate program as well, just in case. And I think like then as well, starting to just do those other main steps to get into what you might need to work on in advance of your PhD. So what kind of specific skills you might need to work on. Then I have a question from Lamia. I'm just answering the ones that were on the old chat because we had to start a new one. So this one is from Lamia. I hope I'm pronouncing people's names right. If not, I'm very sorry. So I'm a PhD student, just started a month ago, no motivation to study at home. We still could not go to university in my country. Any advice? So I've been working from home since March. So that's, I guess, a little, maybe 4 months now that we've all been, like, our university has been closed. You can't go there. I think just now you're able to like rent out a desk some of the time, but I won't be going back until I have to go back because I just don't think it's worth the risk. So I think the advice would be for that is to like make yourself a good schedule that you can stick to and just try your best to eliminate any distractions at home. So I generally try to give myself 3 or 4 hours of really hard work in the day. And then once the main tasks from that are done, I can just leave it. So the motivation is that as long as I complete, let's say, 2 or 3 things, that because it depends on the day, there might be a couple of smaller things or one really big thing. As long as I get that done on that day, then I can stop working. And that's, I think, the biggest motivation, rather than, working away for like 8 to 10 hours and then not actually getting anything done because you've been not motivated or distracted or doing different things. It's better to just kind of set yourself a couple of main tasks and like that is the end to your day, rather than saying a certain number of hours, which then end up get wasted because you're not motivated. So for me, like for example, today I had one specific task, which was getting, I can't really explain it, but something for the web app that I'm building. I had to get one thing done for that, and that I got done after a couple of hours. And then I said, okay, that's pretty much it, finished for me. And I can obviously then do other things that are maybe less important, but as long as I get a certain number of important things done every day, that's the motivation to start or stop the day, essentially, because otherwise your whole day just goes. Okay, I have a question from Manisha and another hello from Manisha in the chat. So thanks for saying hi. Hi to you all as well. Can you suggest something on procrastination? How can one manage their PhD with this bad habit? So yeah, I have like bits of procrastination, but not with my PhD stuff, more so with like anything important that I ever need to submit. So like if I ever have an important form to fill in, I just procrastinate it until the last day for some reason. So one thing that I've started doing, which has helped a lot, is making myself a list every week of kind of life admin things. So things that I need to get done, like they could be making appointments for the doctor or like anything like that. So for me, those are the things that I procrastinate. So during the week, I'll make myself a list with all of those things in it. And as the week progresses, there might be other things that get added. And then I'll pick one day at the weekend, which, if you follow our startup Daysier on Instagram, we've done in our stories before something called your Get Your Shit Together Day, which is basically like the day where you just get everything sorted. So I usually do this on Sunday. I get everything that I've been putting off all week done. So whatever appointments I've been putting off, phone calls I've been putting off, which is a big one for me, emails I've been putting off, and I just try get all of them done. Like I don't necessarily send the emails out on the Sunday, but I'll have them scheduled for the Monday. And that's just something I think has been very important. And it might be something that for you, especially if it's to do with your PhD work and you feel like you're procrastinating, you might want to allocate some time every day as your get your shit together time, where you sort out all of the things you've been procrastinating. And similarly, if it's a case of kind of what I was just talking about in terms of motivation kind of procrastination, if you've been putting off like doing work in general, I would recommend, again, trying to set yourself certain tasks every day. And once you finish those tasks, you can finish your work. So you will then be more motivated to do them because then you can finish, basically. And I think that'd be more beneficial. People always say like, oh, well, you have to work, 8 hours, but it's much more beneficial for you to work like less hours and actually get the things done rather than working 8 hours doing nothing, essentially. So I think it's more important to look at your work more in tasks or things to get done rather than tracking how many hours you're doing. So, okay, hopefully that helps. Yeah, I also think, have you ever seen the kind of procrastination curve? It's essentially like you have time on one axis and stress on the other axis. And like then like as time increases, the stress increases. So you're better off just trying to stay in the early zone where you don't have much stress and you've got tons of time and just doing things then. So if it's assignment based, trying to, if you have problems like not doing certain assignments for your classes in time, then I recommend doing this doing your assignments, aiming to get them done a couple of weeks before they're due, so that then you won't have as much stress for that. So hopefully that helps. So I have a question from Aman. Apart from literature surveys, seminar and conference, is there anything else that you do once your coursework gets over in the PhD? I mean, like the main thing that I do, I suppose, is work on different projects, and then like there will be a literature survey that goes along with each project. So pretty much I've finished writing my second paper now. Well, sorry, I got my second paper into a conference. I don't know if I've told you that yet. So I'm planning a video on like my kind of step-by-step for writing papers or doing projects. So that's sort of the main thing that we do, is we get started on a project. So we start off with an idea of something that you want to try out, and then you'll do a bit of like literature review to see like what's been done already, and then make some sort of plan. And pretty much that kind of project work, which then leads to papers typically, is the main thing that I do. And some of that will be data collection. So that's something that I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, at the moment I'm building a web app for the PhD that's to do some data collection for the runners that we'd like to get injury information for. And that's something that's been working for a long time. So it definitely is something that I need to get done, something I've been procrastinating a little bit because I'd rather just kind of do the main project work than something like that. But yeah, so I think that the main things that we do is work on different projects. And I think my PhD is going to be made up of like 5 maybe main projects that may over the years, get worked on again. But essentially that's it. And apart from that, we also have an internship. So that's between 4 and 6 months, which I was supposed to do this summer, but then because of COVID, it wasn't really possible. So I imagine that's going to be happening either in January or sometime next summer. So that's another thing that we do. And we also have a journal club, which is part of just my specific PhD, but I think a lot of people tend to have them. Apart from that, what else do we do? I'd say that's the main thing, is like working on projects, and then the first part will be literature review, and then after that it's more about like methods and actually working on the projects and like compiling all of the analysis and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot of kind of mainly for me analytical work, but I think it kind of depends. And then I have a question from phenomenal Daniel, very nice name. How is your startup coming along? So it's going well. We were really happy. We placed 3rd in a competition. Oh no, yes, we did. We placed 3rd. I was going to say 2nd. No, we didn't. We placed 3rd in a competition, which we were really happy about because a lot of the other students in that competition were business students, and they kind of had a good sense of starting a business and everything like that. So we were very happy to do so well. And we've been working on it part-time, obviously, because we're working on our PhDs full-time. So we work on it 1 to 2 days a week, and we have meetings ongoing with the people who ran the startup competition. And we have some plans. So essentially, we have parts of it working. We have the dashboards ready. If anyone hasn't heard of this startup, which is fair enough, I don't talk about it too much, it's called Daysier. So we have a site. I'll just pop in the site in here, although then you guys will leave. Okay, I'll pop it in at the end. But yeah, so we have a site at the moment, and we have the dashboards working in a sense. So at the moment, Courtney, who I work on it with, she has them working, but we need to kind of join up the 2 sides now and actually make sure that when people log in, they will see their information. Like each dashboard will be different, if that makes sense. So there's still a couple months work in it. We're really hoping to get like at least a beginning to it by September, so people could at least have the main dashboard ready and hopefully the focus dashboard as well. But then we'll be incrementally like boosting it up throughout the months that follow, but having a good start for September, and then hopefully a lot of you guys will be there as beta testers to try it out and give us feedback, because it is very early stage and we'd like to make sure that we get some people in to give us feedback, and it'd be great to hear your feedback. So I will pop in the site. You can find it on one of my other videos. I'll just pop it in here as well. But just if you wanted to just try out the quiz, at the moment the quiz, maybe you won't be able to see that if I don't put it in properly. At the moment the quiz is, the beginning side. So we still have a lot of work to do on developing that further over the months. But yeah, so we're really excited about it. It's good. It's just can be difficult to manage everything, as I'm sure you imagine. Okay, so let's see what other questions you have coming in here. So I think I did answer engineering degree, professional doctorate in engineering. Okay, rightio. So professional doctorate in engineering. I'm not sure what the difference is between that and a PhD, to be honest. I don't know much about engineering, so I can't really answer that. I can only really answer on my own experience. But I think if there's a difference, like I'd bear in mind to think like, what is it that you like to do? So I really like learning and I like working on projects in a sense. So I think that's why a normal PhD suits me. Arjun, hopefully that's the correct pronunciation. Reading papers on screen or on print. So I don't like to print things out just because I don't like carrying things around too much. So I prefer to read them digitally. And one thing that I've started doing recently, which I'm planning to share with you guys a bit more in an upcoming video, is I did buy an iPad, which I have talked about a little bit. And this was about €500, which I know is not going to be possible for everyone. I didn't buy it at the beginning of my PhD. I saved up a bit and now I've been able to buy one. But I will just briefly show, I can't really actually show you on this, but I will be doing a video soon that explains how the paper reading works on this. And I really like it because I bought a screen protector that makes the visuals a little less bright, if that makes sense. So it looks more like a Kindle now when you look at it, which is much better for reading, I find. And then I've gotten a GoodNotes app, which I have shown before, where I can highlight all of the text and I can write little notes in the margin, which is basically like how I would read it if it was on print. And then from there, I can translate those notes into something else. So I have Mendeley on my iPad as well. So that's how I've been reading them at the moment, but I am going to do an updated video for reading papers. I know I have done one before, but an updated one for how I read them on an iPad. Oh, I have a very enthusiastic question here from Ghislaine. Is that correct? I hope that's correct. I'm so happy to be with you and your YouTube family. I have a question. How did you find time within your PhD? I'm also a PhD student. Please answer me. So I think one thing you have to think about is if you're thinking about a traditional 8-hour workday and you're sleeping 8 hours a day, you still have 8 other hours in the day. So basically a third of your day can be work, a third can be sleeping time, and a third is your personal time to do whatever you want. And that changes a bit. I've talked before about working hours. I typically do slightly less than 8 hours. Well, not slightly, but because I tend to have very, very focused working hours, which I've talked about in my video about deep work. Again, would like to do an updated video on that just to kind of provide more information. And I think I've gotten better at making videos since then. So so I've got a few tips, I suppose, for there. I think if you're talking about having time in your PhD during the workday, I think it's all about eliminating as many distractions as you can. One of those things being any kind of clerical work, like emails and all of that stuff. Try to put them into just smaller parts of your day. So setting aside 1 or 2 hours, depending on what you need, to do your emails and all of that stuff that can kind of get in the way during the day. And any kind of main work that you need to do, set aside a good chunk of time to just go at it for a few hours and not distract yourself. So trying to tell your coworkers, if you have any around, that you're really trying to focus, and if they don't mind letting you get on with it for a few hours, and getting your phone away from you, turning on any kind of web blocker to make sure that you're not getting distracted by anything, or if you have to look up things. So doing programming, sometimes I have to look up things, but making sure that I don't then go and look up other things and get distracted. So I think that's the main way to find time in that sense. But then just to make sure that you're not overworking yourself, so only a third of your day maximum should be work, and making sure that you make the most of the rest of your day will make you feel a lot more like you have a lot of time for yourself. And I think that's really important. Also, just want to say hi to everyone else who has been saying hi, but not necessarily asking questions. So hi to everyone that is here. Thanks so much for listening in. And the next question we have, oh, poor Georgia. Okay, I wish my program was only 6 organized classes. I took 15. Oh, so much time that could have gone to research. Yeah, fair. So I don't know how it works for you, but we have to do 30 credits, which is, yes, 6 classes. And our program is 4 years. I know there's some programs that are longer and you do a couple of years of classes followed by research, but 15 classes sounds like a ton. So that sounds very stressful. I also think for us, it's possible to transfer some of your credits from a previous degree. So if I wanted to, I could transfer some of my credits from my master's degree, but like I would never turn down classes. So I haven't done that. I'm enjoying the classes. Okay, I'm a bit late. So this is from Liv Peters. I'm a bit late. So oh, it's gone. Don't know where it's gone. Oh, I'm a bit late. So sorry if you've answered this already, but what would you recommend for taking vacation since PhD is essentially a job, but more self-directed? So I think it's good to typically at least have standard holidays. So in Ireland, you would typically get about 4 weeks off of holidays in a year. And I would say take at least that. Obviously, it's something to discuss with your supervisor. And like I would let him or her know in advance that you're going to be taking holidays. But yeah, I do think it's important, like especially in research, I think it's very important to take time off. Like now, don't go telling your supervisor that I've told you this and that's you're going to do what I say, but like do what they say. But I do think it's important to take time off because research is one of those things where when you're working too hard on something and your brain is constantly like focused on that thing, you often need time away from it to actually get to the place of understanding the answer. So I think that's one thing I've talked about in my video on walks, which is, I know it's one not a lot of people have seen, but there's actually some good info in there. I also talked about it on my Instagram and like the process of creativity or creative thought, which is actually very important for research. So there's phases. So you have the first phase where you're working on a project and you've started to like put together everything that you need to work on it. And then you've got phase 2 where you're working like extremely hard on a project and you're really like going at it and you eventually hit a wall. And then you kind of need to take some time away from it in order to actually get to the answers. So your subconscious mind will work on a project or like a problem in the background, but only if you are not actively thinking about it. So it's very important to really take some time to rest, take holidays, and that's the time when your brain is going to be like figuring things out in the background. And eventually it will bubble up to the surface and tell you the answer. And then you have to make sure that that is the answer. But like essentially it is important to make sure that you do have that time off. So having restful periods and holidays. But again, something to talk about with your supervisor. Yeah, and taking time off when you need it. So there has been a couple of times, especially with everything going on, that I've just needed to take a week off but making sure it's not been a time where I'm supposed to be doing something. So like after I finish paper, I might be feeling very like I need a bit of a break and I might just take a week then. And I think that's fine. Okay. How to manage, this is from The Best, also an enjoyable name. How to manage industry project and research together in a PhD. So is this like you're doing an industry project as well as your PhD at the moment, or how does that work if The Best is still there? Hopefully. If you're talking about the startup, so I've just been splitting up my time and putting my spare time into the startup. So I still work my normal work days for my PhD, and then in my spare time, I work on Daysier. But if it's more so like I know there's some people who have their PhDs that are sponsored by an industry partner, And I think in that case, like typically you will have, that will be your main work, is actually doing research for them. But if you're talking about the internship I was referring to, we will actually have separate time for that. So we'll have about 4 to 6 months away from our PhDs that we will be working in industry, and it will be completely separate. We won't be working on our PhDs at all, but maybe it might be a period where I can do a bit of thesis writing in my spare time if I'm feeling like I want to do that. But typically they will be separated. But if you're doing the two things together, I'd say try and split up your days if that's something, either splitting up like 3 days for one thing, 2 days for the other, or splitting each day in half, having like 4 hours to work on something in the morning, 4 hours in the evening. Thanks for your comment, phenomenal Daniel on Daysier. I'm very excited about it too, like especially because like for us, like me and Courtney doing PhD, like you need that, like there's a lot of planning I think that goes into it, as you know from this channel is mostly talking about that stuff, and I've just never found anything that I liked in terms of planning. Lola's ditching me, I think now. Down she goes. Down you go. Go on. I've never found anything that I liked except for paper planning, and I think that the Daysier is going to be very helpful for any kind of planning, and hopefully it'll be useful for all of you. So we're very excited about it as well. Do you have any tips? Sorry, this is from Gregor Milligan. Do you have any tips on PhD interviews? I have one on Thursday. Okay, so one tip I have is that the main tip I have is to try and, well, this was a problem that I personally had, which was that like I was trying to point out my errors in a, or like my flaws in a sense. So going into it saying like I don't have a ton of industry experience because I came straight from academia, like from my bachelor's to my master's straight into the PhD, and I made sure to explain that in the interview process, which I do think it's important to point these things out, but not to spend too much attention on them. So I think it's more so like trying to have both sides of it and making sure that you focus on the good things as well as the not so good things, but mainly focusing on the good things. So if you have things that are going to be very relevant, so if you've worked on previous projects in your field, then talking about them or anything relevant, it's good to really point those out. I'm trying to think of what I got asked in my interview as well, just so that I can advise that. Mainly was getting asked about what projects I've worked on or other things that were in my CV they were typically asking about. So yeah, I wasn't really thrown off by any of the questions. I don't think they go out of their way to be difficult. I think they mainly just try to make sure that you have what it takes to do a PhD. So they were asking about like how I feel about working in that kind of way, and like that would be a preferred working style. So like having like your supervisors, but you're mainly working self-directed. So making sure that that was something you'd want to do. And then secondly, they were saying about like the motivation, like, do you think you'd have the motivation in you to work on a long project like that? And that's something that I definitely just kind of explained that I have that because it's something that I've always wanted to do and that I just really always did want to do that. Lola's drinking water now, so that's the noise in the background. We have her trying to drink from a glass of water beside me. So yeah, trying to think what else would they have asked me in the interview. Just a little bit about like whatever skills are relevant. So for me, it's all about statistics and programming skills. So they asked about both of those and I explained my background, but most of it was everything on my CV. Like they didn't really go out of their way to ask a ton of other things. And as well, something they asked was about teamwork, because my PhD specifically is cohort based, which means that we have a research group that we work with and we talk to and things like that. So they wanted to know about how I am with teamwork. And yeah, so that was just a specific thing for mine though. I'd say if anyone throw in any questions you were asked that might help out people who are in the process of preparing for their interviews. This one is from Louise. I am in the very early stages of a part-time PhD. Your videos have been quite helpful. Thank you. Also based in Dublin. Okay, thanks for the comment. Glad you are, well, I hope you're enjoying your PhD so far. And thanks so much for saying that. It means a lot. Yeah, I wonder I've always wanted to know what a part-time PhD would be like. So I imagine you have to work as well with that. So I'd say that can be quite tough. Oh, how do I manage my time between YouTube and PhD? Is it difficult? Yeah, so I mean, like, as you guys know, the videos kind of come and go. I really want to get into more of a regular filming schedule of having videos at least once, if not twice a week, with set days, just so that you guys know when the videos are coming. Because I know I know from people that I watch as well, it can be very annoying when, you know, you start getting used to videos coming on a certain day and then they stop. So I really want to get into more of a habit of getting that sorted. So my plan is to start having one of my days at the weekend for filming videos, and then I can like edit throughout the week and get them up, but making sure that happens. The main thing as well is, like, especially working, like, all of my family are at home at the moment. We're working from home and stuff like that. It can be difficult to find the time to film the videos without having loads of interruptions, especially as you would have known from the alarm things going on today that it's not always possible. So yeah, it can just be difficult in that sense. So, like, depends on the type of video as well. Some of them they can be a bit quicker to film or edit, and some of them take a bit longer. And then secondly as well, like, I try not to just throw videos for the sake of it. So I only really want to make them when they're relevant and when I have something to say. So I think, like, I still, as I said, try to stick to somewhat regular hours of having Monday to Friday for my PhD and working on videos either in the morning before my workday or in the evening if it's just editing, but like trying to stay off my laptop too much in the evening, and then at the weekends as well. But essentially, like, I consider the YouTube stuff to be my free time, and it's a hobby, which it kind of has to be because I don't want to do anything to like interrupt my PhD work, you know? So that's essentially how I manage it, I guess. But yeah, I think one thing that's also good to have for a PhD is some sort of hobby, and having a hobby that you really focus on, because I've heard that when you're building two different skill sets at once, they can really help each other out. So it might be something creative like playing piano, which I've got here, or something like what I'm doing, which is the video editing and like stuff like that. Like, I find that really interesting to learn about, and I can see the videos getting better slowly. So hopefully that is something that you guys see as well. Okay. This one is from Chara. How to publish a paper in a good journal. Honestly, I'm not at the journal paper stage yet. Like, it's not something that will be happening for me, I'd say, for a while, because in computer science, I feel like it's mostly about conferences, and like conferences in AI are very, very big, and that's sort of what you strive for. But like, the second paper I got in was for a very, like, quite a difficult conference to get into, so it only has a 20% acceptance rate for short papers. And I think it is about like making sure that what you're doing is novel and making sure that it's well written. And so, like, one thing there is to just if you can, take an academic writing class, whether that's with your university or online, to improve your academic writing, because I think it does make a difference when you've read something that isn't too well written. And it's a lot of things that you really can pick up, like lots of things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that do make a big difference when you're reading things. So I do think that's important, yeah. And the other point being making sure that what you're doing is new and interesting, and not just writing papers for the sake of it. Okay, I have a comment here. Eng.D tends to have a stronger link to an industry partner, so you have an academic supervisor and an industrial lead. Okay, I think in that case it just depends. Yeah, Colin, it does depend, I think, on like what you like doing. So I think for me, it's more about the research, and that's something I really like, compared to if you really want to work in industry. Like, I think the industry focus is good. I kind of know for myself, well, I don't know. I say for myself, like, I don't really see myself working in that traditional role. So like, but I am very much looking forward to working with an industry partner, which we have with ours for the internship. So I think it's good to have a bit of a balance. What I like about mine is that I can do pure research and then pure industry and really try out both. Okay. Does anyone know a good alternatives to GoodNotes on Windows? Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, if anyone has the answer to that, throw that in there. For anyone, so if you have a Surface Pro, my mom also has a Surface, so I will ask her, and I will try to reach out to you, Louise, and let you know what might be a good one. I'm trying to think, like, if there's anything else that really works. Like, the good thing about GoodNotes is like you can really draw everything, and like the way it is, it's very handy. So they don't have good notes on Windows. That's a shame. Or I suppose on Android, is that you'd use Android for Windows, I guess. Okay, let's keep on that. If anyone knows, throw it in there. No nickname. I wonder what I can do this summer to have more chances to get into a research internship next year and then be able to do a PhD. Also, is it possible to study machine learning alone? I'm trying to look at the comments below. So I see Colin said studying machine learning alone is possible. And if that's what you want to do for your PhD, then it's sensible to do some before applying. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So there are plenty of courses you can do online. So free ones you'll find on edX.org. I'm just going to link edX. This is actually a great resource for lots of different kinds of classes. Hopefully this is available everywhere. I think it is. But anyways, that you can get access to different free courses that are done by universities, and if you want to get some sort of certification with it, you can do that. But it's not necessary. I audit loads of different courses to try things out. And so, yeah, you can definitely do machine learning by yourself. So you can learn from those kind of courses. Yeah, that would be something that I recommend. There's also plenty of different blogs that work on machine learning. So Towards Data Science, which is a Medium blog, is very good for lots of different machine learning things. And they tend to have lots of different tutorials then with links to GitHubs that you can then go and do it yourself. So I do recommend doing something like that yourself. I think that would help out a lot because lots of people in my course didn't have machine learning background, but I think it definitely would have helped people to have at least done the basics for themselves. Okay. Thanks, Colin, for those comments. Very helpful, I'm sure. What do you think about doing internships during your PhD? This is from CS PhD. Are you planning to do any? So I think so. My program comes with a 4 to 6 month internship with an industry partner, and they're ones that have to go through our program. And when I was applying for the course, I thought this was great because it really gives you that, industry experience. If you want to, our program is supposed to prepare people for industry. And I think that's a great thing if you want to work in industry. And I was really excited for that because I thought it would be good to have a bit of both. But then when I started my PhD, I started to get really into the research, and then a internship opportunity came along that was recommended to me. And I did it, was going to go for it and everything. But then I was, really not wanting to leave my research. So it's just about I don't know, different times. So making sure that you have a good time to do it. So after a while, I was, changed my mind back to being excited for the internship, but then it fell through because of everything that's going on. But I think it's just about making sure you can get motivated for something else in the middle of doing something. So I think it can be a helpful way to kind of take a break from your PhD and work on something else. I think that's why it's good as well. And then it's obviously good for employability as well. So I would do one if it's possible, and I am going to be doing one because I have to, but also because I think it's good to do. Okay. Have a comment from, okay, we have nice video. My wife is planning to do a master's in systems engineering here in Germany after 4 years break since her bachelor's in electrical engineering. Wow. Okay, needs work with math. Required linear algebra and calculus. She's ready to apply as a guest student, even though she may not get admission for this winter semester, which she applied for. Any tips on how to deal with initial situations? Well, I think if she's worried about having had the break and not being ready for the classes, I would definitely recommend doing some of those courses on edX.org. They have a ton of different classes, and I'm trying to think, there's also specific ones for linear algebra that are good for math. Maybe I think Khan Academy, KHAN. Maybe that's something you guys, I'm pretty sure, because I was on the mathletes in my school, and part of that was having to do some extra things that aren't necessarily part of our school program. So I remember doing courses on Khan Academy for different classes. I'm just trying to see, do they have any of those maths ones? Let's just see linear algebra. I'm pretty sure this is how I learned linear algebra before I went to college. Yeah, it is. So I'm going to pop this in there for another little one there. Okay. And that's something I recommend if she's worried about that. I'm not sure what else there would really be to worry about, but I do think it'd be good because it can be quite overwhelming trying to take on a load of classes at once. So maybe it's good to get a little bit of a start on it so that you're not too overwhelmed. Okay. What is the coolest thing you've learned in your PhD? Honestly, I don't know. Like, I think it's hard to say. Like, I don't know if I really would say that I've learned anything particularly cool. But I'm just excited about the projects that I have been working on, and like what I like about mine, like working with runners. It's just like, well, actually, one thing I've learned is about like just the level of injuries in running being so high, and like that it's such a big sport, but people become injured all the time. And I wouldn't say that's like anything crazy information, but I do think it's very interesting. So like in Ireland, it's the third biggest sport apart from like running by, or apart from like going to the gym, like just doing exercise by yourself, and then swimming, and then the third highest one is running. So it's the third biggest one here. It's so prevalent, and yet people become injured all the time and there's no explanation for it. So I've just really been enjoying working on that. I think that's just, yeah, something interesting I've been learning. Okay, another one from Aman here. Sometimes reading is something which is not of your interest. It's actually painful. In PhD, we always have that scenario. How do you deal with that? Personally, I don't really read much things that aren't of interest to me. Like, I don't really see the point. When it's relevant to your work, I think it's, and if it's not particularly interesting, I would just do a quick skim. Like, you can know fairly straight away when you're reading a paper whether you're going to be using it or not. Like, are you going to be using this method? Like, obviously changing it to whatever way you're going to use it. But like, if not, I don't see the point in reading the ins and outs of everything if it's not something that's going to be usable for you. If all you need to really say is this person did this or that. And I think it's just important to try and focus on reading things only when you need them, because you're going to forget them. So there's no point in reading loads and loads and loads thinking that you're going to remember all of this information when you're not. So I try and just fix my reading to one project at a time. So when I'm working on a given project, I'm reading for that project and trying not to read for all my different projects all the time, because it's just too hard to keep track of. Any tips? This is from Justin. Any tips for writing your thesis on LaTeX? Best of luck with Daysier, can't wait. Yeah, so gosh, writing your thesis on LaTeX, I'm doing that as well. And it can be painful in the beginning. I think, like, for me, I always like to start off with a normal like pages doc, just so that I have something on the page to start with, and then I just move it in after I've gotten like maybe 1,000 words of something. So this goes for papers as well as theses. So I would say get a template. You should have one in your university. If not, just use a basic template for a thesis, which will help so much with the initial stuff, like not setting up a load of things, and then only learn what you need to as you go along. So learn about inputting images when you need to put an image in, not trying to learn everything about LaTeX, because again, that's something you're going to forget. So I'd say, yeah, start off with a template, do what you can until you get to a point where you need to learn something new, and then learn about that. But I do think it helps a lot, like, because even then, if you decide to change your template, like there's not a lot of things that need to change. You just need to change a couple of lines. And same for like your citations. If you want to change the way you're doing them, all you need to change is one line and it's all fixed. Yeah, okay. I have my first year review in a month. What type of content would be expected to be done in first year? I'm part-time, so it's technically 6-month review. Okay, so I'm still in first year. For us, what's expected to do, we have 2 stages. So we have stage 1 transfer, which is essentially you have a big review then, and that's typically within the first year and a half. So I can tell you what we need to have done by that point, and then you can maybe try and do half of that by that point. So one thing is having an initial bibliography. So essentially like a literature review done, but maybe not written up, but having all of the things that you think you're going to be reading. So basically a lot of references ready. And ideally a first thesis chapter, which could be your literature review. So that's something that I'm still working on. I've been working on for a while because I've been doing it per project a bit slower and working on projects in between. But I do have a first chapter completely done. And that is because I worked on 2 papers, one big project for 2 of my main research questions, and that has transpired into one main chapter and probably about half of the literature review completely done. So that's one thing. Another thing is for us, you need to have your credits. So you need to have a plan for how you're going to complete your credits. And you also need to have your teaching requirements. So like for us, you need to, actually, I don't have to do teaching, but they recommend that you do. And it shows that you're like contributing to the knowledge of future learners. And it's good for like different things. So that's one thing that we have to do, have a show of that. And also like some sort of career management plan as well. So I don't know if that needs to be anything too drastic, but having like obviously some inkling for us of what kind of internship you're going to be doing or anything like that. And I suppose any other things that you might have been doing along the way that kind of contribute to your career. So yeah, I guess mainly for us it's classes, teaching classes, and a first main chapter and maybe like a research plan. So I had to present my research plan to a conference in the summer, and that was a great way to kind of get some feedback from people in the specific field. So some sort of research plan, like how do you expect the next few years to go? I think that would be good. Obviously, in a part-time one, I imagine years will be about 6 years. So it might be a bit more difficult for that, but I think that is one thing that's important. Okay. I have a message here from Colin. For your PhD, the supervisor mostly wants to know 3 things. You are technically up to the content, you can work self-directed, and you will cope with 4 years of research. Yeah, I think that is something is that for the interview? I think that's something that they do essentially want to know. And that's something I suppose I kind of said as well, that you will be motivated to be able to keep going. So yeah, thanks Colin for all those messages. I think they're probably helping out a lot of people. So you're very good to be filling in people. It's very helpful. Okay, how do you practice academic writing? I want to publish in a top-rated journal. One thing that people have said is to just write every day. So you will get better the more you practice. And if you're doing if you're reading, just write up a little paragraph afterwards about what you read. And then like the next day, go back and edit it and just keep trying to work on those skills. So I do recommend taking some sort of course online or not. And then the second thing that you can do is read more and like actually do some critical appraisals of other people's research. So I don't know if how it works in your university, whether you will be doing peer review early on or how that works, but typically it's something that your supervisor will do, or like tell you to do. So, or alternatively, like working with them as like a second, like as in not a second author, but like kind of like you're still kind of their research assistants. So sometimes you'll be doing some reading for their papers and doing some like proofreading, and then that can be a very helpful way to do things as well, to kind of work on rephrasing things. Also see we have from Colin there, important step is to ask your supervisor if you can get involved in reviewing conference and journal submissions. Yeah, I think that can be a good way to start. Like I haven't done that yet, and I think it's one of those things that I don't feel like I'm not capable, but I don't feel ready to do that. I don't feel like I'm enough of an expert, but I do think it depends. And like I would just be stressed out about like potentially rejecting someone's paper for a conference, given that I've only done a few. So for me, it'd be like what I prefer doing is to like do a course. So the course I did in my university helped so much, and then from there just practicing as much as you can. Yeah, okay. Okay, I just accidentally scrolled down to see Colin. Sorry for talking so much. I finished my PhD and I miss it. No, Colin, it definitely helps, especially I'm only in first year. So if you finish your PhD, you obviously have a ton of like information for everyone. So it is definitely helpful. Have a message from Ranafetti. Hello, I just defended my dissertation in April. Hang in there, guys. It's worth it. Thank you for saying that. It's very motivational for all of us, especially it's nice to know. It's nice to have a little community of people who are doing their PhDs, and it's always nice to see like different people in different stages. So having some of you here that have finished their things and other people who are just getting started, some people just in the application stages. So it's great. Okay. Jeschi, hello. What is the most recent project / topic you are working on in machine learning? So I work with recommender systems. That's my broad topic. And what we work on is recommending different things for marathon runners. And there's a few things that go into that. So it could be to do with recommending their training plans or like injury advice, different things like that. So most recently, our like the two papers we were working on and got into conferences were about race time prediction and training plan recommendation. And the way we do that is we learn from runners who've completed marathons. We have their training data for the 16 weeks leading up to a marathon. And you've been using those to learn from the training done by different runners and learn what marathon time someone can expect based on their current training. And as well be able to then predict a next week's training or recommend a next week's training based on their current training and some sort of goal time. So that's what we've been working on. The other thing we've been working on is, well, what we would like to work on next is more on the injury prediction side of things. So we have to collect injury label data for that. So that's the thing that I'm working on at the moment, is building that kind of collection app. Okay. And that kind of works with time series data as well. So for the machine learning people out there, you'll know what that is. The Coursera course in machine learning is by Andrew Eng.D is very good. Yes, the Coursera courses are very good. I threw edX in and Khan Academy because they're free. But in terms of, yeah, Coursera is great, and Udemy also has some good courses as well. So both of those are great. Hi, would you like to explain edX free if you want to enroll? Thanks. Yeah, so you do enroll and then it'll say something like, do you want to get a certificate? And you just say no. There's usually somewhere where it says, I would like to audit the course, and then that'll be free. I'm pretty sure all of the courses have that on edX. I can't like screen share on this, but I'm just going to go through the process really quickly to make sure that that is going to be the same way. So when I go to a course on edX, I'm going to do, yeah, you do enroll, and then you have to put up an account. So sign up any account that you want. And once you've done that, you will be on the enrollment page, and it'll say pursue a verified certificate, and that could be whatever, like €100. I don't do those, but I don't know. I don't do those. I just go down to no, audit this course, no certificate, and then you'll have access to all of the info. So I think that's a great way to start off with things, and especially if you're trying things out, if you don't want to spend money. I know that like the courses on Udemy and Coursera, they're only like €10, but it's sometimes you don't have that. So I think it's a good way to try out edX and see what kind of things you like. And then if you really like a course and it's maybe not comprehensive enough on edX.org, you could then maybe consider purchasing one on Udemy or Coursera. But yeah, good recommendation for the machine learning by Andrew Eng.D. LaTeX dissertation tip, have your chapters in different files, makes it so much easier to work with an individual chapter. Yes, that is a very good tip from Georgia S. That's one thing that I have actually going for me at the moment. So the template that I worked with had that already, which was so handy. So if you've worked with LaTeX before, typically when you're writing like a paper that's maybe like 15 pages, it'll be all in the one .tex file. But then when you're doing your dissertation, you can actually have one main file that then links to all of your sub files. And then each time when you're working on a specific chapter, you can just work on that individual .tex file. And it is so much easier. It just makes things really clear. especially when you've got loads of diagrams and things like that. It's so much easier to have them just separate and like not have them jumping around the place. So yes, great recommendation. How can I join a PhD in computer science from your university? We already have ours coming like full for the upcoming year, and I also don't really know about the incoming process. But I do recommend, like, as in I only found it through my university, and that's why I applied for it. So I'd say it's more important to like find ones that work for you. Yeah, especially like just search as much as you can for different types of ones and see what kind of area would be a good place as well. Like, I'm very happy that I stayed at home for mine, because with everything that happened, it's nice to have just been able to work from home and not have to travel home. But I do obviously know that in different countries, it might be not the same. Like, I'm very lucky to have been able to stay in Ireland and do my PhD in the same place that I did my undergrad. So yeah, that'd be one thing I recommend. Yeah. Okay, who else do we have? Thank you. Colin Patterson again. I found reviewing other people's papers made me realize my papers were better than I thought. Maybe that is something I should do then, because that's something that I feel concerned about. Like, that I just would worry that I don't have the expertise to be reviewing. But I did actually, I was doing grading this year for one class that was an undergrad class, and part of their class was they had to write a paper, and it was like something none of them would have written a conference paper before, but like reviewing those really helped my writing and also helped my confidence a bit, because I know that I've come such a long way since I would have been writing those initial kinds of things, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that helps as well. Too loud. I binge watched all of your videos a week before I submitted my PhD application. I was a bit unsure if it was the right decision, but after watching your videos, I had no doubt about doing my PhD. I hope that you will have the same experiences that I do, because I would then feel very bad if you watched my videos and then thought doing a PhD was great and then got into it and didn't like it. So hopefully you will be enjoying it as much as I will, or I have, because I do really think it's a great thing to be doing if you like the area and if you like learning, and if you like the idea of being the first person to discover something, in a sense. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it, so I recommend it fully, especially if you can get funding, because that helps a lot. I'm gonna start in fall, but not sure about my PhD topic. How do you decide if it's good enough? That's from Anurada. I'm so sorry about names. I'm really bad at them in general, but okay. How do you decide if it's good enough? So you've gotten into your PhD program, I imagine. So for me, like, deciding the topic, it was different because we don't go in with a specific topic, or a supervisor. We just got into the program, and then we had like speed dating in the beginning to like meet different supervisors, and each of those had a suggested project, but then you could kind of tailor it or change it with them. But like, they will help. In my case, they were the ones helping with the topic. But I do think it's one thing that like it's important to bring up to other people, because I was saying that I did my research plan in a conference that was specific kind of to the area, and when I was explaining it to them, I kind of tailored it too much to the area because I wanted them to understand why it was in the conference, and they were kind of saying like, this isn't really suitable for like a PhD. But that was more so because I explained it in a narrow way than kind of explaining how it's going to be beneficial for machine learning. So I think it's important to talk to a few different people in your university that you're going to be working in, and getting some feedback either from other PhD students or from other supervisors if you can. And that, I think, is a good way to determine whether it is good enough. It's hard to know abstractly, but essentially, like, you're trying to provide something new to a field, so it has to be something that's going to be impactful in some way. And it's important. Sometimes things can be seen as too narrow and not having enough of an impact. So I think it's good to kind of share that with other people. So Colin Patterson, I'm a bit weird. I have two PhDs with a big gap in between. Sorry, probably shouldn't be reading out everyone's comments, but I'm like, I'm here, so I might as well. Yeah. So like I feel you though. I think if I had all the time and all the money in the world, I would just be in college forever. Where can I find an expert who can coach me while doing my dissertation? I don't know about that. I haven't done that. Like if it's in terms of the writing, like you might want, I don't know, because like only if it's, I'm not sure really what you mean by coach while doing your dissertation. So maybe you can just clarify that a bit, Bassam, what you mean by an expert who can coach me while doing my dissertation. That's not something I'm particularly familiar with. I'm gonna move on for the moment. Writing. But like again, I recommend just learning about the academic writing process, because like you can't really be involved in having other people do. I know there are things out there for people doing writing for you, and that's not something you should ever get involved with. But potentially you'd be able to get somebody who will read things for you and provide you advice. I don't know if that's something that is done or is typical. Oh no, Lola's barking. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think actually what would be a better idea would be maybe putting together a writing group in your university and maybe reading some of each other's works and providing feedback for each other, rather than getting somebody outside. I think can always be a bit like difficult. I don't know. I just wouldn't really like somebody outside of the uni like reading my work necessarily. So I would really say like I've read other people in my course's work and they've read mine, especially before submitting to a conference. It's good to have other people kind of proofread things. So that would be more my recommendation than having like paying someone to do things. I don't think that's a good idea. Okay. How do you approach professors and people other than your university who are working in a related area? Do I have to ask my supervisor? I think it depends on what you're approaching them for. Like, I've been approached a few times, but like they just kind of send an email explaining why they're getting in touch, like if it's about a collaboration. I think if you're expecting to work in a collaboration in that way, I do think it will be better to ask your supervisor first, because they might not be happy with that. And depending on what you're working on, you might not be able to share things with other people freely. So like, for example, I have a data set that is part of a data sharing agreement with a company, and I can't share that with other people. So I can't get in touch with other people and say, hey, like come and work with me on this, because like I'm not allowed. So anything like that, any collaborations with me have always been through my professors. So people who contact me are also contacting him, if that makes sense. So I would recommend, yeah, asking your supervisor depending on what it's about. Whereas if you just want to have a chat with someone, like complimenting their work or something, I think that's a different story. Have research beast. Good to see your growth, Kira. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Yeah, I've been growing pretty steadily here on YouTube, and it's been a really great experience. Difficult but good. Okay, I'm sure your research will help with Kenyan runners who are known for the sport. Actually, to be honest, I don't think it would necessarily. Like, so our work is mainly going to be for recreational runners rather than professional runners. So more for people, like there's millions of people every year just going out and starting to run marathons, but not people who are necessarily going to be competing. So the main thing, I suppose, like for people who are doing it professionally, they have coaches and things like that to help them, and they have like personal training plans anyway. So it's more for the people who don't have that. So people who are just running by themselves, recreationally, like for fun, or to want to be able to run a marathon. So it's more for people who don't have access to labs, lab equipment, and like tons of coaches. So that's more so what we're looking for. Questions. As you started your PhD journey, did you start with answers, solutions, or with questions, the problems at the back of your mind? Did you have them in your proposals? So my broad question that was started the process was using recommender systems to support physical exercise, particularly for marathon runners. That's the topic that we originally started with. And my supervisor has done a bit of work in the area before. So I had some of his papers that he's done to kind of work off of and try to develop from there. So essentially, we started with problems. So there's a few problems that we want to work on: race time prediction, training plan recommendation, training session classification, and injury prediction. And those are the problems. And we have there's been some talk of different ideas for how we might solve each one. We never had to do a full-scale proposal, but when I was presenting my research plan in June, I did include potential solutions. So first of all, I included initial work. So what's been done either by me or by my supervisor or by other people in the field. Next steps. So what needs to be done next, and then like the general plan, if that makes sense. Or sometimes those two would be flipped around. So what do you want? How do you think you might be able to solve this? What might be some solutions, and what needs to happen in order to get started with that? So yeah, I'd say I started with the problems and then brainstormed some different solutions. So now I'm at a stage where I have some options for different projects, for different problems. And I don't know what will the solution be, but I have some different ideas of what they might be. Okay. I got a research fellowship in my uni after I finished my master's 2 years ago. I've been working on projects that showed interesting results, which I'll use to write to research for my PhD. Yeah, that sounds very good. Fair play to you. I think applying to a PhD is a natural next step, but I still had doubts. No, you're okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good. It sounds like you've got some good experience there. It does sound like you're on the track for a PhD if that's something that you want to do. When I was doing, I did an undergrad and then I went into a master's, and my plan was for after the master's to actually do a graduate program and get a job. And then, this was maybe January in my master's, so finishing up in May and expecting to start working in September. When I was applying for jobs, I just wasn't really enjoying the process. I wasn't really excited about any of them. And I was speaking to one of the professors in my university who offered me a summer internship doing research, and then said, well, would you not want to apply for a PhD? And I was kind of basically, he's in computer science. The class I was doing was in computer science. He was talking about a PhD in computer science. And I was saying, well, my undergrad was in math and statistics, and I've just done this degree in social sciences, which was data science and social sciences mixed together. Which actually, I think maybe I missed someone's question earlier, because I feel like there was a question asking about, is my PhD in social sciences? Which, no, it isn't, to say it's in computer science. But I did do a master's in a mixture between computer science and sociology. But yeah, so I was thinking I don't have the qualifications to do a PhD in computer science, but actually it turned out, because it's specifically machine learning, that's more so data science than it is computer science in a sense. So I actually have ideal background for that, if that makes sense. I have the statistics background and I have some programming. Not that there's no one ideal, but I mean, it's not that I thought I had no way to do this program, but they said, actually, you've got a lot of the skills that you would need for it, apart from the fact that I hadn't done specific programming projects or industry projects before. So then that supervisor said that, and then I started looking into PhDs more so. I always thought I would do one eventually. I just thought I would go and work for a few years and then go back and do a PhD. But then there was this program that I'm having now, which was just starting that year, and then another supervisor recommended me to apply for it. So then I did that, and now here we are. So I do think it's, you never know. I think everyone's journey to a PhD can be very different. Lots of people in the course came from completely different ways, either from industry or from completely different areas, as well as some people come directly from bachelor's as well. Most PhD students I have met wish they knew more statistics than they do. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true in a lot of fields, to be honest. Like I think people underestimate how much you need statistics. And I think, yeah, like statistics is tricky. And even having done a degree in statistics, like there's still, I wouldn't say I'm like an expert at it, but I had that background in it, meaning that I didn't need to go and do a statistics course as part of the PhD, which a lot of people do need to do. And that can kind of slow you down a little bit with your research because, like, typically you'll have some sort of statistics in there. And if you don't know how that works, it can be difficult. So, actually, overall, recommend to everyone to do some sort of like initial statistics courses because you'll likely need to do them. Hello to Benno. Nice to see you. Okay, I've gotten through all the questions that were there, and it's been, gosh, like an hour and 10 minutes, apart from like our fake 2-minute one that we had earlier. So thanks so much for everyone. Do you listen to music or at least wear headphones while studying? Yes, I often do listen to music. I'm not gonna lie. So like there is study music, and I do feel that that helps. But a lot of the time I listen to like dance music. So there's this playlist on Spotify called Bottomless Brunch, which is not at all appropriate for work. However, I do think it's good for when you're working and you need a bit of a stretch. Because like when you have like dance songs, like every couple songs will make you want to move a little bit. And it's good for like stretching out your back because you'll want to like have a little move around. And that's one way that it actually helps me to not develop any shoulder or back problems during a long working day. And it's good because it'll get you, maybe even get you up for a few minutes in between. So if you've seen any of my like work with me kind of videos, like there are regular breaks to make sure that you're getting up and moving. But I think having like that kind of music on helps a lot as well. So, but I do think it's obviously like whatever works for you. Lots of people would be distracted by that. When I was younger, I used, oh no, Lola, shush. When I was younger, I used to watch a lot of TV when I studied because I'm not the kind of person that gets distracted by that. But now I don't do it much anymore. Like I really try now to focus more on deep work and like really get a good few hours of work done straight up. But like I used to have TV on in the background, but it's a bad habit. But I wouldn't be the kind of person who would end up watching things. Are you using noise cancelling headphones? I have noise cancelling headphones. I don't use them because they hurt my ears. Yeah, I don't use them because they hurt my ears. But like I definitely feel if you're the kind of person who gets distracted, then yeah, that works. Like sometimes I have ones that go in your ears, like wireless ones. Sometimes I'll just put them in with nothing on if it's a time where everyone around me is being annoying, and if I really need to focus on something and I don't want any background noise, I'll just put those in and not have anything on. Too Loud says, I skipped all statistics classes because I hated math. Sad stuff, okay? Sad. But maths and statistics is great, so has to be done sometimes, I think. But I actually loved statistics. Oh yeah, okay, so I get you. I actually hated statistics in school, but I actually really liked it. Well, it was okay in university. It was much better than it had been in school. It was the part of maths that I really didn't like in school, but I think it gets better in college, I feel, maybe. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, who knows? Okay. I think I will give you guys like 2 minutes if there's any last questions. Otherwise, we will wrap this up. I really enjoyed this, guys. It was really nice to hear all of your questions. And like, even though like I can't see you guys, it feels like we're chatting away. So it's really nice to do this. And I think we should do it again sometime. I think it'd be nice to do it, to catch up every once in a while and like fill in any questions. So thanks everyone for your questions. Thanks for getting involved. It's great to hear from you guys. And thanks to everyone who's commenting on my videos in general and liking them and just supporting the channel. It's been really great. It's been a great experience. Now that the channel is monetized, it is very exciting. And yeah, I'm just happy to be able to make these videos. And next one's coming up going to be about my step-by-step process for writing a paper. So make sure that you have notifications on for that. Yeah, okay, right, we will leave it here. Bye, everyone. Thank you all for joining in. You're the best. And I will see you all soon. Oh, how do you quickly find the title of the thesis? Is that my thesis or your thesis? Like, I think it doesn't really matter if you change. Like, I think it's good to just start with a beginning, like, one of what you think it's going to be. So mine is probably going to change. It actually has changed since that one I told you. I don't think it really matters terribly, although it depends. So I'd say ask your supervisor if you are unsure. But I think just to start with something that makes the most sense for your research. I know that's not very helpful, but I wouldn't worry too much. I do think it's something that is flexible, like within reason. As long as the topic is the same, you can change the wording. Okay, I will leave it there. Thank you all, and see you very soon. Bye.